year is 2021, which means next year will mark the 200th anniversary of Brazil's Declaration of Independence. Brazil might not be the first country you think about when you think of the largest countries, and that is why Brazil's size is not understood. So first, to understand the size of Brazil, we have to know how it came to be. Portuguese settlers would arrive in Brazil in the spring of 1500. By 1532, Brazil was just a settlement of Portugal. Other Europeans tried to settle Brazil in the 16th and 17th centuries, but then suddenly, gold was found in the 18th century, causing Europeans to flood in. This caused the colony to explode in size, and by 1800, Brazil was about the size of present-day Brazil. In the 1820s, Brazil gained its independence as the Empire of Brazil. The Brazilian Empire would later be dissolved in 1889, and from then on, the shape of Brazil would remain the same. So now that we know how Brazil grew, how big is it in the modern day? Some people might not truly understand the size of Brazil because of the Mercator projection, a very common map used in schools. It can exaggerate places like Greenland, which is stretched out. To compare, this website, which is linked in the description, uses the Mercator projection. The reason countries look stretched out is because they're approaching the poles on an exaggerated map. So now, how does Brazil compare to each continent? Compared to Europe, Brazil is almost the size of Europe. It stretches from Tunisia in Africa in the south to Russia in the east, the Atlantic to the west, and the Norwegian Sea to the north. Africa is similar to Brazil in the fact that people do not understand the true sizes. Brazil can stretch from Niger down to Namibia. This shows how much bigger Africa is than Europe. Brazil looks like a giant against Asia, stretching from Bhutan in the south all the way up to the far stretches of Siberia and in China. Brazil is absolutely massive. Australia? Australia does not stand a chance. Brazil dominates the continent, being bigger than the entire country of Australia. It stretches in the Great Australian Bight of the South. Brazil would stretch all the way to Sulawesi, Indonesia to the north. For one final comparison, Brazil, compared to the continuous 48 of the United States without Alaska, the United States is smaller than Brazil is. This shows how Brazil is a massive country, and compared to individual states, well, Brazil is 20 Californias. Now we have looked at sheer size. What about population? Population can be an odd thing. Looking at a political map will not show you the whole picture. For example, the giant region of Russia called Siberia or Asian Russia has around the population of the U.S. state of California. A map like this helps understand population without taking into account area. Every pixel represents 1 million people, and we can see that Brazil is massive in amount of pixels, being almost as big as the rest of South America is. Portugal, Brazil's former colonizer, has 21 times less people than Brazil has, making Brazil by far the largest Portuguese-speaking country. Brazil is therefore the 6th most populous country on Earth and has over 214 million people. This means that 2.7% of humanity lives here. In Brazil, but more interestingly is how this population is split in the country. So next, let's look at density. The density of Brazil is 25 people per square kilometer, or 66 people per square mile. But even this could be misleading. Brazilian states in the north are in the massive Amazon rainforest. These states are less dense than the states in the east, near the Atlantic coast. The density of some parts of Brazil dominate the rest of the country. 7.5% of all people in Brazil live in either cities of Sao Paulo or Rio de Janeiro. If Sao Paulo and Rio were their own country, the two combined would rank 73rd most populous country. In conclusion, Brazil is the 5th largest country on Earth and is a very influential country. The large population and a large size. Brazil over 100 years has went from 30 million people to 214 million people. Brazil's influence cannot be understated, with great giant cities like Sao Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, Brasilia, and Salvador, and has the largest Portuguese population in the entire world. In conclusion, Brazil's scale cannot be understated. Thank you for watching my first video. If you liked it, press the like button. It really helps me know what content you want next.